Kerby's intricate pages can often feel intimidating. However, I think that when you break them down, they're easier than you think. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by his double page spreads like I have, then this video is for you. Today's colouring tutorial will show you how these stunning pages can be easy and enjoyable to colour. I'm Sarah, and this is Ink and Hue Colouring. Alrighty kiddos, let's go through our art supplies for today. As we know, I'm using Prismacolor pencils, using some NEOCOLORs as well, some Ohuhu glitter markers, some gel pens, and a couple of Poscas. Now, all of these details are in the description, so feel free to pause the video and go and get your supplies. Alternatively, if you have different brands to these, you might wish just to pause the video and match them up by eyeballing it, I suppose. Okay, so let's go through our NEOCOLORs first. So we've got Night Blue, Cobalt Blue, Turquoise Blue, and Cobalt Blue 5%. So just 4 of those today. And then for our fish color, we are using Terracotta 944, Pumpkin Orange 1032, Pale Vermillion 921, Orange 918, Yellow to Orange 1002. And then for our water, we are using Indigo Blue 901, Peacock Blue 1027, Aquamarine 905, and yes, tiny baby pencil. See, I've glued those together. So great. Light Aqua 992, Sky Blue Light 1086, and for our dolphins, and yes, the dolphins are pink, would you believe? Dahlia Purple 1009, Process Red 994, Blush Pink 928, and for our surfboards, we have another glued together pencil, which is Peacock Green 907, Grass Green 909, Apple Green 912, and for some other random things, like for the skin and some blending, I've got Beige 997, Sienna Brown 945, White, that's for the blending on the fish, that probably goes there. And then I've also just got a colourless blender, which is 1077 in the Prismacolor. However, I do believe there are better brands out there. I'm just using this one today because this is the only one that I have. So if you've got a Caran d'Ache blender or anything like that, grab that out. Also using a white and a black Posca. Now you will go through quite a bit of Posca with this page, especially the white one. So just make sure that you've got enough in your pen. And then I've got some Ohuhu glitter markers as well. If you don't have these, any glitter would be fine. Today I've just got assortment of yellow, silver, green, and it looks purple, but this is actually like a magenta type of color. It's just the barrel is a bit different. And we've got 5 different color gel pens today. I'm using mainly the dual metallic hybrids in red, orange, purple, and green. And I also have an orange Signo sparkling too. Again, all of these details will be in the description. So pause the video and grab your supplies and we will get started. Okay, so we're starting with our first NEOCOLOR, which is Night Blue, number 149. And I'm just trying to colour as much of the page as I can without going over the elements. This is just my personal preference because I like my pages to be super saturated. And I'm not worrying about the bubbles because even after I add 2 NEOCOLOR layers, you're still going to see them, and I'm just going to go over them in white Posca anyway. And with this colour, I'm starting from the outside and working my way into the centre with the idea of having the lightest colour in the centre. And this is so that it draws the viewer's eye into the centre where the goldfish are, because if we don't do that, we're going to get a bit lost because there's so much on the page, so you need to have somewhere where your eye naturally wants to go to. And as well, I'm not really worrying about those tiny fish with their fins that are just lines. I'm going over those because I can draw over those later. So this is our second colour, which is Cobalt Blue. So as you can see, I'm going over it just a little bit, going over the first colour just a little bit, because I want a nice blended gradient. I don't want any solid lines. Oh, and I do apologise for my knuckle there, which is looking a bit worse for wear. I lost a fight with a cheese grater, believe it or not. And I can't really wear a band-aid when I'm colouring. So just getting all that pigment in, getting as close to the elements as I can. Again, this will be layer 1 of 2, and I'm choosing to do 2 layers because I like my NEOCOLORs to be quite saturated. Going in with our third colour, which is Turquoise Blue. And again, just blending over. I will be doing a lot of blending in the second layer too, but I figure it can't hurt to have a little bit of blending at this point. And our last one, which is Cobalt Blue 5%. Okay, now going in with our water brush and a cloth. Now this water brush is very fine. You'll see it's rather than a flat tip, it's tapered off. It's just so I can get in all those little nooks and crannies. Especially with Kerby's pages. Now the trick here is not to have so much water that you're bleeding through, but you do need enough so that you can spread all of the pigment around. And if you prefer the look and the saturation of just one layer, that's absolutely fine. As I was saying before, I just like to have 2 because I like it quite bright. I like it to look more acrylic painty than watercolory, if that makes sense. But yeah, just do whatever you like. It's up to you. This is just the way that I like to do it. And I find this part really satisfying. And again, just going over all those little bubbles. I'm not too concerned about going over the smaller ones because they will be done in Posca pen. The bigger ones I will be going over with markers, with the Ohuhu glitter markers, so I'm going to leave those white. And I'm starting from the outside and working my way in. But when I get to the lighter colours, I will be swapping the other way, just so that I'm not bringing too much of the dark into the centre, because we don't want to lose too much of the lighter colours. So satisfying. At this point, I'm doing a blend of circles and little taps just to blend everything together. And because this is the base layer, I'm not too worried about how, I want it to look neat, but I'm not too worried because it is laying down the foundation for the second layer, which will go on top, which is where the magic happens. And you can see I'm working back and forth to try and blend those 2 colours together. I don't want any harsh lines. And because it's water as well, I kind of want to have a bit of a dappled effect. And I want it to flow nicely like water would. Now you need to make sure also that you keep enough water on your brush that you can blend nicely, but don't have too much, otherwise you will start bleeding through the page. Which I actually end up doing in one section because I wasn't aware of how much was coming out. And it's really important as well to keep cleaning your brush, so you can just wipe it on a microfiber cloth. You can probably see that the little pink cloth I've got up in the top corner there. And as well, if you need to activate your water brush again, I would recommend doing so over the cloth, just in case anything comes out. You don't really want it all over your work. And I've also got a piece of paper down under my left hand because it's going to prevent smudging of the wax that's there on the paper already, because our hands are a little bit hotter than paper would be. I feel that the heat of our hands and our forearm can smudge everything, and I don't necessarily want to get all of that over my element. And with the middle bit, I'm working inwards and working my way out because I want to keep that super light color. I don't want to blend too much of the midtones in. I'm really glad that this double page was kind of on a stitch. Can you see the stitches in the middle of the page there? Because it's laying nice and flat, and I feel like I don't have to be on any awkward angle to get in there. The only thing is if you put a little bit too much water there, it can bleed through a tiny bit to the other pages, but I had a look and it's nothing that I was worried about really, so yeah, I was happy with it. All right, moving on to the other side. And you'll find that some of the colours too require a little bit more work to get off the page, if that makes sense. With some, you can still see the scratch lines from when I've drawn it on originally. All you need to do is just apply a bit more water, but again, not too much, to try and smooth that out. But I'm not too worried because it is the first layer. I would be a little bit more not concerned, but I would be a bit more precious about it if this was my only layer, but because it's not, I'm really just not spending too much time or energy with this. I'm really just focusing on getting that colour and spreading that colour around on the background as much as possible. Again, I'm just going over the fish's little fins there because I can draw that in later on. I'm not too stressed about that. Because I feel like if you tried to go around that, you'd end up just looking really messy. And because they're so fine too, I feel like it's just a bit impossible not to go over them. And two, I'm just trying to blend the colours on from the right page to the left so I've got some continuity. I don't necessarily want this huge split down the middle so that it looks like, it's two separate pictures. So sometimes it can be a bit difficult to blend it across the spine, but mostly it's alright, especially with this page because of where it is in the book. And I'm not too worried if any of these colours end up getting into the little fish. because I'm going over that with gel pen anyway, and it won't bleed through. This pen was actually part of a 5-pack or something from Kmart, like the cheapest things ever, but it's actually so good. I use this one a fair bit in Kerby's pages just because of that fine tip. Oh, look at that little fishy at the bottom. He looks sad. Again, with the jellyfish little stingers, I'm not too worried about that because I'm going to go over them in white. Yeah, I just don't feel like it's worth the effort to try and go around them. Again, it's just going to look messy. Alrighty, now funnily enough, I didn't realise that there were little gaps in the waves when I first looked at this picture, but as I was applying my Neo 2 colours and filling them in with the water brush, I soon realised that they were there, which happens a lot with Kerby's pages, so don't worry too much. Just focus on one thing at a time and more will be revealed to you as you colour. And there's one on the other side too. Yep, there it is up the top there. So I'm just doing that the one colour. You could add more if you want to, but I think at the time I was just happy with this. Okay, and that's it for our first layer. Looking good. Okay, so for our second layer, I'm now grabbing the pigment off the crayon directly and putting it on to the page. I'm also using a Caran d'Ache palette, and I've scribbled on some of the pigment onto the palette so that I can pick up colours and mix them. But I also hold the crayons in my hand and I blend them that way. So for example, I might pick up some pigment from the darkest colour and then pick up a tiny little bit from the second darkest colour and blend them together because I do want that seamless blend. Just not at this point. As I get further in, I'll start blending it. And at some points, I actually do have all 4 colours in my hand as I'm blending them. Now, this part of the Neo 2 colour process, it's really about, for me, I find it's really about the feel of how, like, what you're picking up and how you're painting it. So, for example, you might feel that it's too light or it's too heavy, so you adjust accordingly. It's really about just playing with it as you go. I don't necessarily have an exact recipe of how much I pick up I just pick it up until it's looking how I want it to look. And I might go in and just add a few little sneaky dabs over the top. And as you can see, I'm just dabbing it and picking up and blending my colours. There you go. You can see that there. I don't always have the NEOCOLOR 2s in front of the camera because sometimes it detracts from how I'm actually placing the ink. And again, I'm going to go between starting on the outside and working my way in and then the opposite way, depending on where I want that colour placed. So I do a blend of picking the colour off the crayon directly and also off the palette because both serve a purpose. I find that if I solely did it from the palette, I'm not going to pick up as much pigment as I want. However, it's perfect for those moments where you just want a tiny little bit and you kind of want to see the colour that you're creating before you apply it. So I like to use both. And also just bear in mind that if you're going between, say, your lightest color and your darkest color, wipe your brush off on a cloth before you transition, because just so you're not manipulating the color too much, if that makes sense, you really want a clean brush. Just checking to see if it was bleeding through, because at that point, up where that surfer is, it's just a little bit, I think, because I just pulled a bit too much water around that point. It's not too bad. I can definitely color it when I go and color that rabbit. I'm really not worried about it, but I did notice it. Yeah, so during that point, I've wiped off my brush so that I don't bring that second darkest color into the middle, because otherwise it's all going to end up just looking one color and you don't really want that. I still want to have the lightest color still there. But again, like, this is all based on artistic preference. It's based on the look that you want to do. So just because I'm doing it this way doesn't mean that it's the right way. It's just the way that I prefer. And again, just a blending of dabbing and tapping and swirling it around. I'm more like tapping and dabbing around, if that makes sense. Probably tell by my little brush strokes there. But again, that's just my preference because it is water. I'm trying to create a little bit of movement. I don't really want to have, it's like I want a seamless blend, but I still want a little bit of texture. And I think that's just the way I like my NeoColor application anyway. Oh, fun fact, did you know that when I was filming this video, I recorded over 14 hours of footage? Hence why we're doing things a little bit differently today. So if you like this, let me know in the comments and I can keep doing them this way or I can make it up. Make it up as we go along, I mean. Change it up. Yeah, that's the right word. Uh-huh. Yeah, because I don't think it's physically possible to be able to do a 14-hour video on YouTube. Like, the upload limit is about 12 hours. So this way you can learn to do a double page spread in Kerby's books in 2.5 hours. Why not? I feel like if I put it any faster, it'd just be a bit difficult to like actually see what I was doing. And those little bubbles as well, yeah, you don't want those, so just tap those out. And also just another thing to make a point of as well, that when you are working with your NeoColor 2s and you are pulling your pigment off your crayon, just make sure you're doing it over a microfiber cloth or a paper towel, because you might end up with splatter all over your other elements, which has happened to me. I'm really liking the way this section's blending. It's looking good. And this part I've obviously just gotten carried away with my NeoColor section and obviously just did not realize that you could not see me. Okay, so going into the second layer on these little windows here, would you call them? They're like windows. Windows through the waves into the background. And I'm just doing this little one down here before I move over to the other side and patching up any areas that once dried I'm not too happy with. And now for the second page. And again, I'm going right to left because I'm left-handed, but if you're right-handed, you'd probably go the other way, or just go with whatever way is comfortable and that you don't have your paper or your hand over any of the wet neo colors, because it will get all over you. Luckily enough, because it is water soluble, it will wash right out. And again, you just want to make sure that your colors are flowing nicely between page 1 and 2, that there's no harsh lines, because we want to have that the intention is that it's all one, so it's not two separate portraits. And sometimes you will need to wait for little sections to dry before you get an idea of the true colour that it is, and you just want to go over it again. Or like I was saying before, some of the pigment might not be thick enough. It does dry relatively quickly, however, I usually leave it overnight before I start my pencil work, or even just for an afternoon or something. I usually wouldn't go in straight away unless I could get at it at an angle where I wasn't putting too much pressure on the NeoColor 2 work that we've done. I really like the way that this second lightest colour, how thick it is. It's really nice. I find that the darkest colour, it's just got a different feel. And I find that I have to work a little bit harder to get the two darkest colours to really behave the way I want them to. It is a little bit easier when you've just got a solid colour to do. And trying to fix up some little bits that I'm just not happy with. For some reason, it was just this little section down here. And just going back over some of those light bits just to accentuate that a little bit more. I found that it's not as bright as I want it to be, so I'm just bringing it out and blending it just a little bit. And you can see that when my brush starts to separate, that it's just a little bit too dry. And I usually give it one more once over if there's anything that I've missed. Sometimes I do get overexcited at the start. I tend to just go for it, and then I've got to come back and assess and go over any things that I've missed, especially under the fin there. I just wanted to make sure that it was a nice blend. I felt like it was too light. Alrighty, now going in with our darkest colour for our goldfish colour combination, which is terracotta. And for the fish, I am not shading every individual element with this terracotta. I'm actually just going to go more just around the shape of the fish because I feel like they're going to look a little bit wrinkly, if that makes sense, if I put like the shading on its forehead and around the mouth and the eyes. I feel like it's just going to look a bit haggard. So I want the fish to look quite sleek as well. So I'm more contouring the shape of the body opposed to all these little details. And I really don't want to colour in the scales individually. That would just take forever. And I don't think I could fit all the colours in either. Apart from the fins, of course, this is where I'm getting a little bit more detailed. And I'm following Kerby's shading. Now, that is one tip with Kerby as well, that you always put your darkest colour where he has shaded the heaviest, and then you work your way outwards. And I feel like the process is much quicker as well, and I do like the result. And the base layer for this colour combination is quite easy because we're not necessarily establishing how far out we're going to be bringing the tail just yet. Because we will be blending in the goldfish colour with the colour of the water as well, which is something that we'll factor in when we get to our later colours. One of the great things about Kerby's work is that he's already done the shading placement for you, so you don't have to think about it too much. And I found with the paper in this book that I actually need to press a little bit harder than I normally would, say, in a Johanna Basford book or Hannah Carlzon. For some reason, I haven't found this with any of his other books. So I found myself sharpening my pencil just a little bit more than I usually would. And I'm really just getting creative here with where I'm placing the shading on the fin. I think because if you look at that fin there, I'm placing shading where it's further backward. And I'm trying to bring the lightest colours to the front. And under the chin there. It's got like a little old man chin. I love it. Very cute. A little bit under the eye. And again, just a bit of shading where I kind of feel like there would be elements that are underneath one another. And again, this is something that you just learn over time. It's not necessarily an exact science that I found I understood straight away. It's really just an intuitive thing now. And I'm putting the shadow in the middle as well because I really just want to put a bit of shading under where the fin is. The dorsal fin, whatever would you call it? It's like beautiful flowing hair, really. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'd loved colouring this section. And again, while I'm colouring, I'm just mentally establishing where the fins are going to end and where the water's going to start. I'm just having a think about it. Alrighty, for our second colour, which is pumpkin orange, and it's just more of the same. However, I'm bringing out the colour a little bit more. Heavier at the start and tapering my way off, which is what I did with the first layer too. And this is just really creating that shade. We're just building those shades up underneath the vibrant orange that's going to go over the top. And you can see those layers start to take shape with the fins. You can see how the light and shade's starting to form. And you can see how I've gone over a bubble. But to me, that doesn't matter because I'll be going over that with Posca anyway. However, if I wanted to keep it white because it was going to be another colour, you could just erase it. Because Prismacolors do erase pretty well. You might not erase it completely, but you would erase enough of it to do the job. And I'm just adding to the shading. Just building it up as I go, layer by layer. And I'm just colouring kind of like the middle bits of the sections because I kind of want to leave the top parts for the highlights. Almost as if the fish had been to the hair salon and got some sick-as foils put in. And there really is no right way as to how far you bring out the colour on the tail. It's really just artistic preference. It's up to you. At this point, I'm really glad that I made the decision, especially on this fish, to not put my darkest colours over all those shading marks on the forehead and between the eyes that Kerby has done, because I feel like at this point I'd be giving the fish like a double monobrow. And he already looks grumpy enough. Whenever you see my camera vibrate, it's because I've just whacked my head on my camera rig. I don't have great spatial awareness, so I tend to knock things. Imagine how many pages you could complete if you coloured this fast. I mean, it's not humanly possible, but imagine how much my month-end videos would look like. You know, I completed 50 pages this month. It's a new record. And my shading on the fish body is quite even as well, so I'm not too worried about, see where it tapers off in the middle of the fish there. I'm not too worried that I'm not going to fit all colours in, because you wouldn't anyway, because that's a smaller space. Okay, now going in with Pale Vermillion. This is one of my favourite oranges in the Prismacolor 150 set range. It goes down so nicely, and whatever the recipe is in that core, just so good. However, I did find on this paper that I had to push a little bit harder, which was annoying because I'd burned through my pencils a little bit more than I would have liked. I know that in Johanna Basford pages that the Pale Vermilion is just so bright and vibrant and I don't have to press hard much. However, on this occasion, yeah, I just wasn't getting the vibrancy that I wanted without having to go in and just really push it. But, you know, is what it is. So again, just bringing that colour in the same width as the other colours. And you can see that like goldfish colour is really starting to take shape, which is why you need to trust the process. So if you've got a colour combination and you've looked at it and you're like, yep, that looks really good, and then your first layers that you do and you just start to panic because you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so different. Just keep going and don't judge it until you've done the whole thing. So we can see how our fish is looking quite sleek already with just following the shading around the shape of the fish, opposed to colouring all those individual scales. I mean, if that's your preference, you certainly can. It was just not mine for this occasion. I'm not going to say that I'll never colour the scales individually. I might, but just not for this. Again, you can see those light sources and the light bouncing really start to take shape. And the reason why I chose this color combination is because it sets a really good contrast against the background color and also, which you'll soon see, with the color of the water as well. And it naturally draws your eye to the center of the page. Because I feel that if I did these fish any less contrasting, then it would have just been too hard to figure out what to look at first. Because there is so much water and so many waves and white patches and bubbles. There's a lot to look at. So I think on pages like this, I'm just being a little bit strategic about what is what color, I guess. He looks like a little bulldog fish with his little nose. It's cute. And is working on those fins too. So I'm starting with the pale vermilion just to really, because it's kind of like tucked under his little side body there. So I don't want those to be fully light because it's not like on the top of his head, if that makes sense. But again, don't stress too much if this is something that you can't naturally figure out on your own. It has taken me hours and hours and hours of tutorials and working on my own intuition and how I feel about where I want to put my colours. So it will come to you. Even if it feels like this is taking forever, the day will come. And I find that for myself, I'm not perfect either. I look back at some of my work and think, oh, I definitely could have chosen this colour opposed to that one, and why did I shadow there? So don't stress too much if it sounds like it's a complicated thing. I'm really just letting my eyes and hand just do the work. I'm not really thinking about it too much. Like I am, but I'm not at the same time. I'm just going, oh, yep, this would look good there. And that's kind of like when you get to the midtones with Kerby stuff, because you've done all the easy work in terms of where the shading is, and then it's up to you to figure out where the midtones sit. All right, now we're going in with our orange, and I love this orange. Oh, it's just like Fanta. Just brings back 90s nostalgia. And I love the contrast between the terracotta right up to the orange. We do have one more colour to go and then some white, but I'm loving it already. The lightest part of the fish I'm working towards, you can see how I'm slowly building a bit of a circle. And I'm just working in a bit of the orange in on the fins as well to create a bit of a curved look. And also joining up the section, so joining his body and also joining the shading of the head as well. Trying to draw that circle without things going too crazy. I really enjoyed colouring this part of the fish. I feel like there was such a nice flow to the little dorsal fin, if you will, and what was like the back part of it and the tail. It's just so nice to colour. It just flows. It kind of reminded me of hair. Not that I've coloured a lot of hair. I plan to, but it just reminded me of that. And yeah, just colouring in the orange down the bottom because I don't necessarily want the light source to be the whole way down the back because it is curved. Because it'd look a bit odd, in my opinion, but again, there's no correct way to do this. It's just an artistic preference. Right, done with his little pouty mouth. He needs a hug. I know that's the way that their mouths are kind of shaped, but I think just the way he's drawn, it's so funny. He's got a bit of character. Maybe he went shopping and realised there wasn't any sales, so he's upset. Again, adding more mid-tones to the outer edges and the middle as well. Just trying to create a bit of movement, a bit of depth. Very different to the surface of the body, which is sleek. The fins are more free flowy. Oh, I've just noticed a dot that I did not notice and I coloured over it. And I'm just using Kerby's lines there on the top of his forehead just to finish that darker colour, just to finish the orange. It won't be too noticeable once it's all coloured in. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't go there with my darkest colours. It'd look a bit like, yeah, I don't know, just not what I was after. It's funny sometimes with this, I just had a really clear vision for the page and I found choosing the colours was quite easy. I knew that I wanted orange fish and I just knew what blue colour combination I wanted to use out of my book, and yeah, it all kind of flowed. There are a lot of pages where I struggle greatly to pick colours, but for this one I just found that it just worked. And I'm starting to think more about how far I'm going to bring out the tail, and you will notice me towards the later end of the video that I adjusted even further, but sometimes you need to do that. You won't be able to get it perfect until you've kind of coloured in everything and you see how everything's balancing on the page, so don't worry if you have to go back in and tweak stuff, it's perfectly fine. That's why we've got the blender pencil, and that's why we have erasers as well. Okay, so now we're going in with a yellowed orange. Now this is the lightest colour, excluding the white. And at this point, I don't really want to add a lighter yellow in because the yellows that I have in my selection, they're just not the right tint or they're just not right. So I wanted to add the white in, which was it was perfect. I did a little test and I was really happy with it. So you'll see that in a minute. But just to make their little foreheads super shiny. I mean, you could go in with Deco Yellow, but I just wasn't quite sure if it was right. I just felt better about the white. And sometimes you just got to follow your gut. I can see where I've got a little neo splodge. Can you see on that fin? On the top? Sorry, on their dorsal fin. Can you see that? I can see it. I know that I especially struggled with this particular tail, not knowing where to end it because there wasn't a definitive answer for me. So I tried my best, but there's some areas that I feel like I could have done better, but that's fine. You just cover it over with gel pen. Now for the other side. I think the camera vibration is also me sharpening my pencils because I have the dial 133 and it because it's a hand cranked one, just ends up shaking the whole table. And you can see with my little pauses as well where I'm stopping to think about where I'm going to put the colour. So I certainly don't go in having it all mapped out. I'm rolling with it. Sharpening again, who would have thought? Going in with that tail now and covering up, doing the last bit of the fish's body. It was a little bit difficult to figure out how far to bring this out with that surfer in the way, but I feel like we got there. And it was funny because I actually didn't notice that surfer until really late. I think when I'd just kind of started colouring the tail in that certain area, I was like, oh, there's another one. So again, like, don't let all the details in Kerby's pages deter you because it'll naturally come to you and you'll be able to figure out eventually what to do. So starting with like a big element first can really help. Again, lots of thinking going on, dragging it out a bit further. Not quite sure where to take it. I feel like I'm commenting like a tennis match here or something. Going for gold, guys. Alrighty, going in with the white and just blending out that yellowed orange. The Prismacolor white is really good for this. And I'm especially blending out the white on the tails in preparation for trying to join the blue up as well. Just to create like a bit of a layer there. Okay, and now we're starting with our ocean. Now this is the Indigo Blue. And again, I'm just focusing on the darkest areas that I can find. I'm not too worried about color placement as such. I'm just going back and forth, finding the darkest bits. And you will see that I'll come back to this section as well. And as I fill things up, as I see more things, I'll just come back and fill it in. Again, just where Kerby has done most of his cross hatching and hatching. And especially where there would be shadows as well, so under those surfboards and under the curl of the waves, under the crest there, underneath other layers of waves. And you'll see too that the colour palette for the ocean that I have chosen, I want it to match the background, but I don't want it to be an exact replica because then it's just going to get lost. So you'll see this is why I've chosen more of a turquoisey aqua colour for the ocean, because you want to separate the foreground and the background, but you also want it to complement one another. Especially on detailed pages like this, you've got to be a little bit strategic about the colours that you choose and make sure that they do have a decent contrast. But again, this is something that we pick up as we keep colouring Kerby's books. It's certainly not something that we nail first cab off the rank. And I've got 5 colours in this ocean colour palette too. So I'm just being mindful of that when I think about how far I'm bringing it out. Again, I'm not thinking about it too much, but I'm just being mindful. Again, this is not an exact science. It's just feel your way through it. And once you understand how you colour, you'll be able to gauge how you want to lay down that pencil. I find that the dolphins have the funniest little faces. And I find the Indigo Blue really difficult to work with on any paper. It's quite scratchy. So yeah, I do find I have to press a little bit harder, but it just is what it is. I feel like you're going to find that with any pencil set. You'll have some colours that just you have a bit of a rough trot with. And you can see here too that there's some areas which I'm already starting to blend the blue with the yellow. And funnily enough, I thought that the Posca pen and the gel pen section part of this would have been my favourite, but it wasn't. It was colouring the fish and the ocean. Because the Posca just ended up taking me forever. But I love the result. It looked amazing, but it was a labour of love, let me tell you. And again, if you're losing track of any of the colours, they are in the description, so you can pause the video or keep it rolling and just quickly flip down to the description and they'll all be there. There's some areas over this side which I'm getting in nice and dark because there is a lot of shading there already. And Kerby shading helps as well. It just helps create that bit of depth. Like, not only does it guide you, but it also helps with your colour saturation because he's already got some ink there, which is something that I very much appreciate. I was considering adding a bit of black, but I wasn't too sure, so I thought I'd leave it, but I was happy with the result and found that I didn't need it. But certainly, by all means, add some black or add some like 90% cool grey if you feel you need to. Especially if you're working with different pencils, such as polychromos or something, you might feel that you want to add a little bit of depth if you can't smush them as well as the Prismas do. However, as we know, the downside for the Prisms being able to be so smushy is the fact that you burn through them so quickly and they are a little bit expensive to maintain. However, the shop that I get them from has them for $2.20 Australian, so I'm pretty happy about that. Oh, again, I feel like this little surfer, like this one too, is like right in the way. And two, I'm just going back over spots because as I colour other areas, I'm noticing more areas in which I should have coloured, but that's, again, like we've been saying, that's just how it is. Well, it is with me anyway. So I hope that it's starting to make sense. I hope that I'm able to break the Kerby pages down for you so that they don't seem so intimidating. That's my goal anyway. I think often, because they're just noisy pages when you look at them uncoloured, I think that can often put us off. But again, if we just look at it, you know, the forest for the trees sort of thing, we kind of notice that how easy, well, not easy, but how much more achievable it can actually be than we originally thought in our mind's eye. Especially with a double page spread with Kerby, I certainly didn't think that this would take me 14 hours to achieve. I don't know why. Maybe I live in a dream world. And not all of my shading is going in the one direction, as you'll notice. Before I just moved some upward and then downward as well, because the water is quite flowy. Okay, going back with our Peacock Blue, this is our second colour and I'm just continuing on with the indigo and also in some newer areas. So I'm starting to look at the areas that have still some heavy-ish shading. And I really like the way that Peacock Blue blends with Indigo Blue. It's really striking. And you can see that we've got the turquoise tone coming through. And that we're already starting to have a little bit of a difference to the background, which is what we want to achieve. I'm certainly really impressed with the amount of blue hues that are in the Prismacolor range. Because it means that I can make decisions like this and I've got options to help me get there, especially as well because the Prismas are my only set of pencils that I currently colour with. I do have a set of Derwent Studios, but I don't use them. I still need to swatch them in my swatching book, but yeah, I just don't use them. I suppose I'm just probably not skilled enough to know how to use them well, but the Prismas just work with me quite well. And just filling in some of, so this Peacock Blue is like a darker mid-tone, so just filling that underneath the crest of waves. Wow. Can I talk or what? No. Oh dear. And we can see the lovely shapes starting to form, especially above my hand where that wave's curling. It looks really nice. And using my handy dandy pencil extender because this pencil is getting really short. And if I remember correctly, I still feel like I had a bit of scratchiness with this Peacock Blue. However, I knew that the more layers I added, the more I would fill in that scratchiness. So I wasn't too concerned. It was more I was getting frustrated with how it felt when I was colouring and how I had to just press a little bit harder just to make it work. I found this particular fin quite easy because it was easy to place the colours and there's some solid lines between the yellow and the blue, but there's some other areas which are a bit more challenging. But we just kept on building up the layers, building up those layers. How funny with that surfboard that I just erased. I reckon it was about 3 or 4 times I kept going to colour it thinking that it was a wave because the shading's the same. And then having to rub it out because like it's a surfboard. So don't worry if that happens. Everything's erasable. Everything's fixable. And yes, even the people that film the tutorials will get it wrong, so don't worry. And also with my shading, I'm just trying to go with the shape of the wave. And especially just the individual wave segments because I want it to flow nicely. I don't want it all to go in kind of one direction because that's kind of not how water would shade, I don't think. And at this point, I'm shading some of the little water edges with this colour, but not too much because I want to save that for my 2 lightest colours where I can. But especially if we're under a wave crest where there wouldn't be much light, we're certainly going to add a bit of shading there. And another tip too to keep your pencil sharp is to keep rotating your pencil in your hand, just so you're not colouring with a completely flat tip. Getting closer to that yellow. Okay, so I've added in the Peacock Blue up here as well because I want the lightest part to be in the middle there. And even though it does look a bit clunky at the minute, I will be blending it out with a blender. And I will be adding in other colours as well. And if you have a method in which you blend opposing colours, that's fine, do that. If that's different to mine, then by all means go for it. For me, I find that a blender works really well just to smooth out the transition between those 2 opposing colours. Because I don't really want any harsh lines. I'm trying to just for everything to be smooth and graceful. So yeah, you want to be smooth with your gradients, but you also want to add a bit of depth and texture as well. Hence why I'm not just like starting at the very bottom and working my way up. And there we go with the blender. So it just smooths it out just a little bit. And I will admit my heart was absolutely sinking before I added the blender. I was like, oh no, what have I done? What am I going to do? But I'm happy with it now. And I do have to hold the middle of the page down just a little bit just so I can get it nice and flat so I can colour it and not have to fight with it bouncing up all the time. And at this point, I'm having so much fun colouring this page. I'm so happy with how it's turning out. And I found that at the top left corner of this page, there was a lot of shading compared to a lot of other areas. I found, yeah, that there's quite a lot of work that was done up the top here. Opposed to some other areas that were very light. And that little dolphin poking up the top is so cute. And if you are interested in more Kerby colour alongs, I do have quite a few more up on my channel. I have some colouring tutorials, and I also have some colour alongs where I'm silent and I've just got music on in the background. So there's both types of videos available for you if you wish. And I will tag one of my latest colouring tutorials at the end of this video too. And that's where you can see how to do metal and a pan pastel background. I find that I'm still following those shading lines, as you can see. And you're probably going to be following them for about 80% of the time. And you can see how crumbly I'm getting too. The Prismacolor blues can be a little bit crumbly. Now, it is arguable as to whether this particular section here is water or if it's part of the fish's tail. It could be either or, so I'm just treating it as the water. Okay, and now we're going to start to go in with our Aquamarine colour. So this is the start of our mid to light colours. So we've got this and two other colours to go. I'm just bringing this out further. And starting to feel a little bit more of the white space with this colour too. And this is where we start to see that turquoise colour really take shape because we're blending the three together. I love the way that one looks. This is coming out so well. And you'll find that too, that there'll be a lot of times when you're colouring Kerby's pages where you'll stop and look and you'll be like, oh wow, that actually looks really good. So you should be proud of yourself. Let me know in the same comments if you are using the same colour combination or if you are going with something slightly different. I'd love to know everyone's different interpretations of the page. And I'm hanging for the day where YouTube actually does allow photos in the comments. But for now, you can hit me up on Instagram. Now, I don't want to bring too much colour out on that particular wave because there's not much shading there. It is definitely the top of the crest. But I do want a little bit because I feel like if I had that stark white, it would just stick out too much on the page. It would be really noticeable and it would be a bit confusing as to what it actually was. So I'm just trying to blend it in with the other waves as much as possible. And here as well, we're starting to blend with the yellow a bit more. Next time you're at the beach, see if you can have a look at the waves and notice, if the sun is shining, of course, and notice how the light hits the water. And see if you can hold that in your mind's eye and replicate that to your pages. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Well, no, it is what I'm trying to do. I do have, I've got memories of waves in my mind's eye and I'm trying to replicate that. You might even want to look up Pinterest and have a look at some of the ways that light sources are hitting certain objects. That can certainly help as well. And bringing out the pencil extender. I believe at this point that I was waiting for an order to get another aquamarine that was coming in, and so I've been resorted to this, and I also have 2 other baby pencils that I've joined together to make one longer pencil, and I'll be using that one too. And if you would like to see a video of how I glue my pencils together, let me know in the comments. And yes, holding down those pesky pages when I reach the middle to prevent all that bouncing up. Because I want to keep my pencil strokes nice and smooth and consistent, well, as much as I can. And again, just deciding what areas that you would like to leave for the lighter spaces and what areas you would like to colour. It all depends on how much you want to accent and how much or what kind of shape you're trying to achieve, what kind of contouring you like, all that sort of thing. Now, this is that sketchy corner where it takes me a while to think about where I want to put things because this is where it gets really tiny. And again, with that cranky dolphin, that is so funny. And here we are with the joint pencil as well. Now I've just got a bit of super glue and I've stuck the two together. And at one point I will actually put the joint pencil in the pencil extender. One of the primary reasons for this is so that I can fit it in the dull sharpener. Because of how much pencils cost, I don't like the idea of throwing them away. I want to get as much use out of them as physically possible. And sometimes when you add it up over the time, it could be the difference of, say, 5, 6, 10 pencils over the course of a year. So it really does add up. This dolphin's just chilling. He's just scared the living daylights out of this guy. And he's like, yep, that was fun. Oh no, it's a chick. She's got a ponytail. At this point, our ocean is starting to really take shape. We've only got the light aqua color to go, and then majority of the last color is used on the crests of the waves because it's such a super light blue. Now, I couldn't tell if that was a dolphin or a shark down the bottom there, but I'm just going to treat it as a dolphin. And again, I'm just going over the little jellyfish stingery things because I'm just going to go over them in white Posca anyway, so I can't bother trying to colour around them as such. Even though it does look like that I've left a couple. Here we go, there's that pencil extender, the old faithful. As you can probably already tell, these ones are the Derwent set. It comes with a black one and a silver one, and I believe the silver one is for thicker pencils. And the black one's great for Prismacolors. I think I just picked these up from Officeworks actually. You can get them on Amazon, but I just found them in the shop when I was there and just, yep, save on shipping, that'll do. Right, so we are almost there with our aqua colour, our Aquamarine. I feel like this shade and the Peacock Blue shade have been the biggest in terms of colour laydown. Alrighty, going in with our light aqua. I was getting really keen at this point to finish. And I'm just going over a lot of the white space here because they're not waves that I would consider would be at the forefront, and because I also want to highlight those streaks that I'm leaving between as well. But if it's your stylistic choice, you could leave some space for a lighter colour. It's completely up to you. And I'm also going in and I'm colouring over some of the white space as well on those like edges of the water, if you will. And tapering this light aqua off so that it is closer to white more than blue. And again, just filling in some of those white spots completely. Really love how this particular crest has turned out. And during this colouring process, I was actually thinking what it would actually feel like to be a surfer on these waves that were made out of giant goldfish. Like, would I be terrified or would I have the time of my life? Who knows? But I love that this is Kerby's mind. I love that these illustrations he's come up with, and it's a great reflection of his creativity. Onto the second page so quick. And even though I said this was completed in 14 hours, it certainly wasn't 14 hours consistently. So please don't worry if you have to take a break, even every half an hour. That is more than fine. I think I filmed this over like 3 or 4 days. And I think my longest stint was about 2.5 hours. And by that time, I'm absolutely wrecked. So, I would recommend not colouring for that long. But sometimes you just get in the zone and yeah, you look up and 3 hours have gone past, hey. Alrighty, going back in with our sky blue light. Now, this is our lightest colour, and I'm just using it to colour the very tops of these water swells and the waves, so just these streaks. I will leave some white as well, but it's just so not everything is super stark white, because you will see at the end that we do have a lot of white in terms of with our outlines and our bubbles and things like that, so I'm just trying to keep a bit of colour and depth into the page. And again, it's the other reason why I went with some blue shades that were slightly different from one another, because if I kept these waves the same as the NEOCOLOR colours, we'd literally just be looking at an orange, blue and white page. And so, yeah, I wanted to mix it up just a little bit just to keep it interesting as well. Because it's like the background is like this deep, deep ocean, and it's like, is that light... Is it the sun shining through the water, or is it something else shining out from the deep? We'll never know. But yeah, I had trouble with the sky blue light on this particular paper as well. I had to press really hard at this point. But I figured that because I was literally just colouring in the caps and it's for highlights, so I wasn't too worried about it. I mean, I never am really. With any colour, I just try and make it work. And at this point too, I'm really keen to get to the gel pen stage. I'm keen to colour in the dolphins, the surfboards, the surfers themselves, and especially all those bubbles. And it's nice seeing that all your hard work has paid off. And that's one thing I find about Kerby's as well. As much as it might feel like a hard slog, the reward you get is tenfold. So I think it's well worth it. I think it's well worth putting in the time and effort. And two, the more you'll do it, the easier it will get. And the more you colour in, the more other little areas you'll see that, yeah, that, like I was saying, that you wouldn't notice when you first look at the page uncoloured. Because I'm even seeing even on the waves, there's so many bubbles that I just didn't see when I was colouring that I've coloured over, and now I can see them. But again, that's okay, because I'm just going over them with white Posca. And I'm getting carried away here, and I was forgetting that I was filming, wasn't I? I do that all the time, and even because I have the camera like just next to my head, so I can actually see where my hand is, out of the corner of my eye. And just so you guys can see the pencil tip as well. Because I find that with my hand grip, the way that I hold the pencil, if I have the camera completely upright, you might not see exactly what I'm doing. So yes, even with seeing the pencil out of the corner of my eye, I get carried away and forget to move the page or to move the camera rig itself. All right, now we're going to go with our surfboards, and I wanted to pick a very greeny, like a grassy green. So this is the Peacock green. So I felt like going completely turquoise green, like a blue green, would have just been it would have been too similar to the waves and it wouldn't have stood out. So now with this particular one, I'm colouring the whole thing in the different colours before I start changing, and that's apple green. So it was peacock green, grass green, and apple green. And I got the wrong one there. And I've got the right one there. So going in, I'm going to do all of them with that first layer. I find that when I'm filming colour alongs, I've got to be really aware of how many times I'm showing a pencil, because I don't want to swap between pencils too much, because then it's just going to be confusing for you guys, because you're going to have to look up at the text all the time. And again, it's going to be hard for me because then I've got to type the text out so often. So I try and be fairly strategic about when I change pencils, but sometimes I just forget. And my brain goes on a bit of a holiday. Yeah, I didn't realise how many surfboards were actually here. I think there's like 10 or 11. I'm just going with some really simple shading, so just 3 colours, because they're quite small as well. You can see they're smaller than my thumb. I was weighing up what colours to do the surfboards. I was like, oh, I could go purple, but no, I thought green would be a good combination. And again, it's really up to you with what colours you want to pick. It's a stylistic choice. You could have gone with, I could have gone with purple and it would have been still a good decision. This was actually the first colour along that I filmed where I didn't have everything planned out exactly. Like I knew what colours I wanted things to be, but I didn't have the combinations all planned out, and I didn't have all of my materials planned out. And I feel like I'm starting to get the confidence to approach my colour alongs in that way, that I don't have to have like 50 pencils laid out and all the gel pens. I can go, right, I'm going to do one section at a time, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to go pick more colours. And I love that I'm getting to that point. I feel like I'm getting less stressed about colour choices, which I think is a natural progression for any colorist though, really. I'm sure you guys have been there as well. And if you're still there, don't worry. You will move out of that phase, I promise you. Even though if you feel like you've been stuck there for years, it is coming. Just going in with this apple green and putting it in a pencil extender. Sometimes I just get so lazy and I'm like, oh, I don't want to put it in the extender. And then I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. So yeah, I mean, lessons should be learned the first time. And I like the contrast too between the apple, the green, and the peacock green as well. Okay, now for the dolphins. Now this is a process red. This is quite a pinky pink. I love it. No, this is Dahlia Purple. My goodness. Dahlia Purple. This is going to make that very pinky pink process red pop. I mean, why have blue or grey dolphins when you can have pink ones? I mean, really? Am I right? Again, letting out the inner child. I'm 35 and I still let out the inner child. I feel like pink and blue always go well together as well, especially pink and orange. It's so summery. And I wanted to have really summery colours for this too because it's an ocean theme and everyone's surfing. And as I was colouring this, I just had the Wipeout song in my head. I was just like, again with this shark dolphin, it's probably a shark. It looks a little bit angry, but it's going to be pink and it's going to be a dolphin. Okay, going in with the process red, and you can see how vibrant that process red is. It is one of my favourite colours in the Prismacolor range. I think just because I like pink, but also because, yeah, it's super vibrant. And I really don't know why they call it process red when it's pink. I mean, pink is red technically, but if you know, let me know in the comments. I know that there's like a history behind why things are called what they're called. Art history, etc. Okay, going with the blush pink now. And I didn't want to add any more colour to this because the dolphins are pretty small, so 3 was enough. You could get away with 4, but this is too squishy for me. And I wanted a fairly light pink as well because I wanted the dolphins to look very neonish and streaky. And now we're going in with my chosen skin colour. And that is beige, and that's just the first layer. I'm going to add a sienna brown over the top because they do look a little bit washed out. This is one of the very last pencil colours that we're using. We've got a couple of other colours going on, and I think I might even adjust some of the goldfish at this point. We'll just see. All right, going in with this sienna brown just to darken them up a little bit, just to add some shading. I'm not adding too much, number 1, because I haven't really learned how to do skin yet. But number 2, they're just so tiny. Sometimes I wonder if beige was the right selection, but I think by the time they're coloured in, it is what it is. Looking forward to learning how to colour skin shades. Okay, and now we're going in with our gel pen work. So I'm just going through, this one is a red sparkling, and I'm just going through and randomly applying different gel pen colours to the surfer's clothing. And this is, I could say it's red, but it's definitely pink. It's a deep pink. And applying some purple as well. And there's really no method with this. I'm just blotting it around. So as you guys know, I love gel pens and I love sparkles on my pages. And now for a green one. This is really nice, this green. These are the dual hybrid metallics. Sorry, the Pentel dual hybrids. And now I'm going in with a Ohuhu yellow glitter marker. I don't think it's gold, it's too yellow for me. Yeah, it's a different tint. But just making the hair all sparkly. And now there's some of them that are just going in with a bit of black Posca because they had a fair bit of shading there already. And also colouring the fish's eye just to bring that out. Now, I did just make them all black just to make it pop. You could go in with another colour if you want to. But I quite like the black. I love using that black Posca. And now I'm looking at all these little fish, which I see in my mind's eye as goldfish as well. So I'm just going through, again, this is an orange dual hybrid. And I'm redrawing some of those fins, especially on over the NEOCOLOR 2 areas. And you'll notice too that I skip a whole bunch of them right up until the end. I know that they're blending in a little bit with the fish here, especially in this section, but I feel that they contrast really well when they're over the ocean and the background, which is where the most of them are. So I'm quite happy. I was debating whether I'd make them all different colours, but I feel like it'd just be a bit too busy because we've got so many bubbles that we need to work on. Yeah, it was just more of a strategic decision for me. And I just love orange sparklies. Orange is not usually a colour that I would gravitate towards, but for some reason with the gel pens, I really like a sparkly orange. And little fish are really satisfying to colour too. That one looks like an arrow, but I'll show you it's a fish. Okay, going in with some magenta Ohuhu glitter marker. Now, the barrel does look purple, but the ink, as you can see, is more of a magenta-y finish. And I find that the glitter markers work fine. On this paper, in terms of bleed through, they'll only really leave a little bit of a shadow if you press too hard, but for most of the time, they're fine. So they work perfect in these colouring books. I don't have to reserve them to single-sided colouring pages, which is good. And I'm not colouring in every bubble. It's mainly just the biggest ones that I'm using in this colour because I'm going to bring in some green as well, just so it complements the surfboards. Because I like to be thematic with my colouring, so I like to bring the same colour around in multiple areas just so there's not too many new random colours that I'm bringing in. So this one's more like a lime green. And I find that, yeah, it complements the purple bubbles really well. And I'm just going in with more of those mid-size bubbles and ones that have like a little light source on them. And ones any smaller than this, I'll keep for the Posca pen. I'm just trying to have a bit of colour in the bubbles as well so that everything's not white. Again, like I was saying, I don't want to have a page that's just orange, blue and white. I want to have a bit of other stuff in there too. And yes, moving the page around a fair amount to fit everything in. And see that cluster of fish that I just completely forgot about. Okay, and now I made the decision, spur of the moment, to do streaks with a different pen. So this is the Signo Sparkling in the orange. It's like same but different to the dual hybrid. Because originally I thought, if I've got one orange sparkly pen in my collection, that's all I need. But no two pens are the same. They all have their own characteristics. And yes, I'm obsessed with gel pens, so of course I'm going to say that. But I really like the way that the orange is contrasting with the blue, so I thought I'd just bring that out a little bit more. And I'm also trying to balance out the tails because I feel like some sections, say on the left side, are different to the right side. So I'm just trying to even them up a little bit so there's like balance on the page. I certainly don't want I don't want one fish to look like the poor thing's got a small tail. Oh, and I'm off camera there. Nice. I think I was literally holding onto the camera rig at this point. Not out of exhaustion, just because I was so focused and I had my right hand just like hanging on the arm and I think I just pushed it without realizing. So yeah, just place your gel pen wherever you feel free. If you don't want to use gel pen, that's fine. You certainly don't have to. I know that not everyone loves it. Just because I use it doesn't mean you have to. Just because I love it doesn't mean you have to. You could use pencil or you could just leave those areas white. It's completely up to you. I'm even going over some of the areas that I'd coloured in that sky blue light. I think because I came up with this idea after the fact, and that's fine too. And you'll probably find that with some Kerby stuff as well, that you want to change some things and that, yeah, go for it. Get creative. Yeah, the Signo pencils have really nice ink. I didn't like this section. Didn't like the way that like top of the wave just stuck out. And again, I've got that paper there, so I'm not smudging anything because I wasn't quite confident if the previous gel pen work was dry. It probably was, but I just wanted to avoid smudging it the best I could. And now we're going in with a Posca. Now, this was a labour of love, this one, but it is worth it. You can produce some stunning effects, but I would recommend having a Posca pen that's quite full because towards the end, I actually run this Posca dry. And sometimes you need to activate it a fair amount so you can get a smooth line. And so that you are covering up those black lines as well. And I find, especially with things like water and clouds, covering up those black lines with a lighter colour can really make the elements pop out. And I'm also covering over not only the crest of the wave points and where the white bits are, I'm also colouring some of the black lines that are on the water itself, but not all of it, because I'd feel like everything would just go white. And also, if you feel like your Posca pen's getting a bit gunky, just give it a wipe. And the size that I'm using is a PC 1M. And I find this size works best for gel pen pages. I find that the smaller size than this, which is a pin type, I don't like it. It doesn't come out quite smoothly, whereas this does. I like it. However, I do find that Posca have a better range in the PC 3M, which is the size up, and they have glitter markers as well. So yeah, I wish they had as much of a range in this as they do the one up. Because yeah, for your fine elements like this, you really need something that's not going to leave these like big, streaky, chalky lines over your work. You want it to be quite delicate. And I'm filling in all the bubbles at this point too. And as you can see, it's covering it quite well. The pencil isn't bleeding through the Posca, which is good. Sometimes you will have a bit of a thing with this with purples, but it's usually not too bad. Now, you don't have to add the Posca if you prefer the black lines, that is totally fine. Or even if you wanted to add less white lines in this, that's fine too. Just do whatever meets your creative requirements. And I just left that bunny too. I had no idea what to do with him, so I just left him. I mean, I could have coloured him in pink, but I'll wait and see what I colour the bunny on the next page, and then maybe I'll do him the same. Because I discovered, because I thought Worlds Within Worlds was, I don't know, like just single pages, but I didn't know that every page is related to the subsequent page. So for example, the bunny is in the fish, and then in the next page, it's the bunny, and then there's something in the bunny, and then the next page is that thing that was in the bunny. Like, it just carries on. It's like a mirror in a mirror in a mirror. It's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize how deep the rabbit hole went. So yeah, I love this. All those little bubbles. And I'm choosing to outline the coloured bubbles as well. Feel free to leave those black if you like. Part of me wishes that potentially I did leave them because I had a lot of white on the page. I'm still super 110% happy, but I think I would have been happy either way and potentially saved myself a little bit of Posca ink. Well, Posca paint. And again, you don't have to use Poscas. You can use any brand that you like. I know that the Tooly Art ones are good and the Artex ones are good as well. You certainly don't have to stick to this particular brand. I do find that some of the Posca pens can be quite watery and you have to activate them so much and shake them so much to get them to work. My favourites are the white and the black. I find that those two are really consistent. Especially the black. It is so solid. It's wonderful. The oranges and the yellows can be a bit of a nightmare. And if you've watched some of my other colour alongs, you'll see how much I just get it everywhere. And now I'm noticing all those extra bubbles that I didn't notice when I was colouring the fish. And I'm going over all those bubbles that I coloured over with the NEOCOLOR 2 as well. I can still see them. And I'm just going to colour these jellyfish before I start colouring in the Posca on the other side. I completely forgot about those. So I'm just using a pink there. Okay, and now we're starting this page. I really like the effect that water looks with white over the top. That's me activating it again because it was just going a bit, yeah, don't do that. Yeah, that was a mistake. Don't do what I just did there. Don't do that. Do this. I don't know why I coloured the fish. I think my brain, I was just like, ocean, even though it's like a completely different colour. Yes, I don't do that. If you did it, I'm sorry. Activating it again, and there we go. You can tell when you need to activate it because you'll start to see the black line come through even though you've gone over it. And if that's the case, just give it a bit of a shake. You'll need to activate it again by pressing the nib down on a piece of paper and a couple of times and just letting some of the paint kind of well up. Not so much that it bleeds all over the paper, but more so that it wells up on the top of the nib that's just showing out under the plastic part. Because it kind of sits there and it'll slowly direct itself down into the tip where you can apply it to the paper. And again, if it's getting gunky, just give it a bit of a wipe. I just have, yeah, I've got my microfiber cloth sitting there from the NEOCOLOR 2s, and I just gave it a bit of a squiggle, and it's fine. I do need a little bit of maintenance, especially when you're using them for stuff like this, where you're just going over and over and over the page. You can see some of my black lines coming through, which I do go over some of those, I believe. Some I'm happy to leave, but because I think by this point I knew my pen was running out, so I was just trying to be strategic about where I placed it. I do have white in 2 other sizes. However, I wasn't quite sure if it was just going to be super noticeable. So we'll have to stock up on a couple more. Or maybe I might actually try some other brands. We'll see. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite brand of acrylic marker or acrylic paint pen. I absolutely love that splash of water that's behind the surfboard there. It looks really cool. And once again, I'm really only covering the outline or the top of the crest of the wave or where the white parts are. I'm certainly not covering every single line because that'd just be too much. And going through some of the jellyfish as well, just giving them their little stingers, their little frilly bits. Finishing off some of those bubbles. And as you can see with some of my lines, I'm still practicing my steady hand here. I'm not completely perfect. I'm so much better than I used to be, thank goodness. Because when I started, oh, lordy lordy, I could not do a straight line. Now going in with our black, and I'm just doing a few dots around the eyes of the dolphins and a few bits and pieces that I missed along the way. And then going on with our pen for our fish. There we go. And that is a wrap, guys. Let's have a look at our wonderful completed page. Thank you so much for joining me on this colourful journey today. I hope you found this both inspiring and helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments how you went. If you're interested in a long form video of how to colour a Kerby page, you can head to this video that I'm linking right now. It'll be either there or down there, up there. I don't know. I'm going to try and put it where I'm pointing. Until next time, happy colouring and stay creative, guys. Bye.